If you like what I do, consider joining my channel or donating to my coffee. Links in the description.
Pina sans mi manicette, d'un enfant sur le banc. Farid de la cimanette, doni point à volinette. Pina sans mi manicette, d'un enfant sur le banc.
At long last, it's finally here. After years of silence, speculation, and enough clown hair and nose memes to fill the abyss, Hollow Knight Silksong has finally descended upon us. And make no mistake, this wasn't just another video game launch. This was an event. The level of anticipation was so astronomical that entire studios literally delayed their own games rather than to try to compete. On the Metroidvania front, both Phaland and Eternal Lucis pushed their release dates back because Silksong's impending launch loomed over the industry like an asteroid so big that even Aerosmith's silky smooth, soothing vocals couldn't stop it. I've never watched Armageddon or listened to Aerosmith, at least not on purpose. Think about how long this game's been cooking, and when the game finally launched, it didn't just drop, it broke every major online store. Digital storefronts went down. People couldn't even buy the thing. And yet, 500,000 players still piled into Steam at the exact same moment, shattering records with 500,000 plus concurrent players. That's crazy. Naturally, the hype machine immediately crowned it the greatest game of all time. That's just what happens when you've got a fan base that's been starving for years and finally gets fed. Surely, Silksong will be the second coming in gaming and bring about peace and prosperity for all. Yeah, f***ing right. Of course, such a hyped game would stir the pot and cause quite a bit of discourse. Complaints came fast. Silksong is too difficult. The runbacks after death are excruciating. And the combat? Some players say it just doesn't feel great. And of course, the moment those critiques started making the rounds, the Get Good Brigade emerged, swinging their e-peens like it's some badge of honor, insisting that masochism is the pinnacle of game design. As always, nuance got lost in the noise. But you want to know what's funny? Team Cherry's already released a patch on PC that tones down some of the earlier bosses, and the Get Good gang couldn't be more upset. These are the same people who always say, if the game's too hard, get a mod that makes it easier. To which, now I can say, if the game's too easy, get a mod that makes it harder. Yeah, that's what you sound like, you fucking dorks. Go ahead, you know where the dislike button is, but by pressing it, you're admitting that you hate me because I'm a direct reflection of you. You'd just be proving that you dislike yourselves. That's probably why you all love these sadistic runbacks so much. You fucking dorks. Here's the deal. I'm gonna dig into all of this. The difficulty, the mechanics, the controversies, every thorny piece of the puzzle. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's actually set up the game. You play as Hornet, captured by some creepy cultists and brought to a land haunted by Silk. And Hornet, she's not a fan of being captured, and thus embarks on a pilgrimage of pain as he ascends to the Citadel to put an end to Farloom's bug trafficking business once and for all. Alright, let's dive in at a perfect 45-degree angle to see if the long wait was actually worth it. Time to spin this Silk into something coherent and find out if Hollow Knight's DLC turned full-fledged game is truly the next great Metroidvania.
Combat.
Hey, it's Future Luke. While editing, I realized this review comes out swinging pretty negative, which is weird because I absolutely glazed Silksong in every other section. It's just the combat that got under mine and a lot of other people's skin, so don't take this section's tone as my holistic view of the game. I just had a lot of critiques here. Anyway, let's get this caravan a-moving. Boys, I gotta be honest with you. Silksong's combat is not for me. I'm not saying it's bad, though I do have my critiques. I'm just saying the combat didn't gel with me. I actually avoided combat for the most part because it was so tedious and obnoxious. Most enemies took what I thought to be way too many strikes to kill, and that's not even talking about the bosses. Man, these might be some of the spongiest bosses I've ever faced. But I'll dive into them here in a little bit. First though, flying enemies. Sweet God, there's a million of them. Every biome throws 2 or 3 varieties at you, most of them with projectiles, all of them input reading little cheaters. They'll zip just out of reach, wasting your time while you flail like an idiot. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, as you want some pushback from your opposition, I get that. But, like, does there have to be so many flying enemies? Hornet moves like a dream, and yeah, she's got anti-air options, but man, when you're always dealing with flying a-holes, it just gets exhausting. I also felt like Hornet's attacks lacked impact. Her hits would slightly push enemies and herself back, but you could never stop an incoming attack. Even the tiniest bug could tank your attack and get you with at least contact damage. And this contact damage was even worse when fighting aerial enemies. Hornet does have a standard parry if she strikes an enemy's attack at a precise moment. It's cool and actually helpful against projectiles, but tricky to pull off. But when you do it, it feels pretty great. Now, I'm not saying Silksong's combat's bad. I've seen some high-level play that's almost orgasmic to watch, but I will never be that good, nor do I want to be. And that's the crux of the discourse around Silksong being too difficult. Silksong has a sky-high skill ceiling and a brutally high skill floor. It demands precision early on, before most players even have a chance to warm up. You've probably seen the meme comparing Hollow Knight's tutorial to Silksong's. It's funny because it's true. Silksong basically starts where Hollow Knight's Pantheon's left off. Now, that's not entirely true, but things do ramp up fairly quickly. Silksong's bosses are hard. Do not let anyone gaslight you in an attempt at waving around their digital Ds. This is legitimately tough, especially for casual gamers. I'm no casual gamer, but I'm also not some esports sweat lord. I'm 40 years old with 40-year-old reflexes. I mean, just look at this footage. Like, what are we even doing here? Add in the insane amount of tools I throw during these fights, and the screen becomes pure chaos. Just way too much information for my aging millennial brain to process. I'm not saying the bosses are bad. I just think they're too much for the base game. Almost every enemy and boss hits for 2 masks of damage, which is kind of BS. Like, regular enemies shouldn't be as strong as the bosses, right? Isn't that kind of odd? And let's document this right now. Hornet has no iframes on her dodge. I get flamed all the time for love and after image because Renee doesn't get iframes on her dash until late in the game. Fine, hate it for that. But you know what other game did the exact same thing? And I don't see anyone cracking down on that game for the same grievous sin. So here's your chance to make it up to me. Say Silksong's combat is crap for not having iframes. But you won't, because everyone's too afraid to call out Silksong's shitty game design choices in fear of the Get Good gang and the game's unhinged fanbase. Speaking of shitty game design, let's talk about them boss runbacks. You can tell this game started development nearly 7 years ago because Team Cherry still thinks runbacks are cool. My anti-runback agenda has been apparent for some time now, and I honestly can't understand people who accept this garbage. People have tried to defend it by saying it's adequate punishment for losing against a boss, or that it's actually quote-unquote fun. I'm telling you, it's a mental illness. Let me be clear, keep runbacks out of my Metroidvanias. I will not warn you again. Even FromSoft ditched this stupid practice because it's so hated. And before you come into the comments section defending these runbacks, don't. I've heard it all. It's only a 30-second runback. Well, that's 30 seconds too long, Jack. My favorite is when they say I suck and it's a skill issue. I'm currently showing my footage of the dreaded Last Judge runback. Like I said, I'm not a professional, but I can play a video game pretty good. And I'll leave you with my final defense against runbacks. I get good at playing basketball by playing basketball, not by driving the practice. Now that I have most of the negative stuff out of the way, let's talk about combat's actual mechanics. Hollow Knight's soul system is gone, replaced by the very similar silk system. Hornet gains silk by hitting enemies with her needle, and she uses that silk to heal and do silk skills. It's a great system, and you'll love to see it kind of return. You can't heal whenever you want now. Instead, you gotta wait until Hornet's spool hits a threshold. Then you can heal for a flat 3 masks. And you can heal in the air now, which actually is kind of broken and carried me through the game. Well, that and Hornet's tools. Hornet's tools are busted. End of story. If you're having trouble with a boss, whip out your tools and send them straight to hell, or as we like to call it nowadays, bile water. If not for Hornet's tools, I don't think I would have beaten many of the late game bosses. I just do not have time to get good anymore. I am 40 and employed. I got shit to do. I'll let my poison flying bugs handle my light work. Now, here's where I have a couple of other criticisms for the game. One I call Elden Ring boss theory, and the other necessary grinding. I'll start with the Elden Ring boss theory. In Elden Ring, the bosses are ridiculous. Wild attack patterns, endless combos, and they don't always feel like quality Souls bosses. Why? Because they were designed to fight both the player and their summons. To balance that, FromSoft made bosses far tougher than in past games, which means fighting them without summons feels brutal because those fights weren't tuned just for that. I think Silksong did something similar with Hornet's tools. The tools are so busted that bosses were given absurd amounts of HP just to withstand the onslaught. Fight them with only Hornet's Needle and they feel like sponges. Mix in tools though, and suddenly they melt in seconds. Is that bad or unbalanced design? Maybe, but it works. It gives the Get Good gang their grueling battles while letting the rest of us cheese our way through and still experience the full journey. Now, tool spamming doesn't come without a cost. Enter necessary grinding. If you're going to lean on these tools, you'll need shards to craft and restock them. Shards drop from almost every enemy, and Hornet auto-crafts her tools at benches. The problem shows up when you run out of shards because a particular boss is giving you problems. This halts progress and forces players to find a farming spot and grind if they want to use their precious tools again. Honestly, it's not that terrible. I've been gaming long enough that I don't mind throwing on a YouTube video for a quick grinding session. But players should know shards are finite and running dry can be frustrating. I've never been a fan of finite resources for secondary attacks. I grew up with JRPGs, hoarding my mega elixirs until the final boss. I just hate using something if it might run out. That's why I loved Hollow Knight's soul system. If a flying enemy annoyed me enough, I'd blast it with Vengeful Spirit without a second thought, because as long as I kept swinging, I had a renewable projectile. With Hornet's tools, every use feels like edging closer to a mandatory farming session. Sure, I could rely on silk skills instead, the way the knight used soul arts, but good luck building enough silk when every damn flying enemy is designed to waste your time. But, of course, skill issue. Am I right? And that's it for combat. Silksong's combat is this weird paradox. It's amazing to watch, but kind of draining to play. Hornet moves like lightning, the skill system is clever, and her busted tools give less dedicated players like me a fighting chance. But the spongy bosses, garbage runbacks, and endless aerial jerks drag it down. It's not bad, but it's also not the silky smooth combat experience I was hoping for. At least, not from my play level. If Hollow Knight felt like a precise dance, Silksong feels more like a knife fight in a hurricane. And depending on what kind of player you are, that's either exhilarating or just plain exhausting.
Abilities. Platforming.
Silksong's platforming is absolutely incredible, but I worry the praise for it has been drowned out by all the chatter around the game's combat difficulty. Seriously, the most I've heard anybody say about its platforming is how much they hate 45-degree angles. For whatever reason, people aren't grasping Hornet's default dive, and it's been a meme ever since players discovered the Hunter's March. Don't get me wrong, there's a definite learning curve, especially if you're used to the knight's sublime pogo. And if you long for the pogo's path to glory, don't worry. There's a crest that perfectly emulates the knight's movements down to his little baby swipes. But more on crests in the progression section. As for platforming, I have no notes. This is peak. One of my biggest wishes in Hollow Knight was for more White Palace style sections, and Silksong delivers over and over. There are so many challenging platforming areas with different levels of difficulty, and they're all fun. The level designs are equal parts clever and diabolical, and Hornet's movement makes simply running around a joy. The way she moves and how the platforming incorporates her traversal abilities are seriously top tier stuff. The abilities she unlocks are cool, if not a little on the basic side. But because Team Cherry nailed the fundamentals so well, you won't really care. My only gripe is how slow the pacing is. It was about 2 hours before I unlocked Hornet's dash. And it wasn't like I was stuck, it just takes that long to get, though the speedrunning community has proven me wrong in that regard. And getting the double jump takes like 20 hours or something, maybe more. It's nuts, but it's really not that bad. Once you get Hornet's dash, you've basically unlocked the greatest and most useful move in the entire game. Floating's cool, simply because it's both practical and hilarious, and Hornet's spear chuck is superb, but dashing is the real MVP. Moving around and flipping through enemy attacks looks as good as it feels. Just like its predecessor, Silksong's biomes each come with gimmicks that keep Hornet's 50+ hour adventure fresh. You heard me right. 50 hours. There's a whole lot of game here for just 20 bucks. Anyway, biome gimmicks. There are lava pools, rideable air currents, sections that'll freeze you to death, parasites. So many parasites. And that's just scratching the surface. Every biome adds something new to the platforming table, and it's never not fun. I don't want to spoil too much, but I'll just say the Sands of Karak is platforming excellence. As for puzzles, there aren't many. Silksong is more about hiding things behind breakable walls, whether it's a tool, a mask shard, or even an entire biome. This game loves hiding the game from you, and that's part of its charm. It has the confidence to not hold your hand, to let you miss things. There are secrets within secrets, and because the game never points you straight toward them, stumbling into something on your own feels deeply personal and it sticks with you. Discovery always feels impactful, and that matters in a Metroidvania. And that's it for this section. Silksong's platforming is peak Metroidvania platforming. It's challenging, it's creative, and it makes just moving around feel incredible. Yeah, the abilities take their sweet time to unlock, and yeah, Hornet's dive has become fuel for the meme machine. But when the game lets loose, it delivers some of the best platforming I've ever played. The biomes keep things fresh, the secrets make every discovery feel personal, and the level of craft here is undeniable. Say what you will about the combat, I certainly did, but when it comes to traversal, Silksong is nothing short of a masterpiece. You could remove all the combat from this game, and I still would have a blast just getting through its platforming gauntlets.
Progression.
I have no idea where Silksong fits on the Metroidvania spectrum. It's not a Soulsvania, I want to make that clear. There's no deep RPG elements or stamina-based, deliberately slow combat here. But it's tough to say it's purely a Metroid-like because there are so many avenues for character expression with the game's new crest system. Not that Metroid-likes don't have character expression, but for the most part, they really don't. You find upgrades and power-ups in the world, and that's basically it for your progression in a majority of Metroid-likes. In Silksong, your crest is your weapon, accessory, or charm system, and your spell or binding power. I'm not going to say I like it better than Hollow Knight's charm system, because I don't, not by a long shot, but it's actually a pretty cool and unique take on character expression. There are several crests to find and equip, and each crest drastically changes Hornet's moveset. Her basic attack, her aerial down attack, her dash attack, and her charged attack are all affected, as well as her binding ability, which is her healing. For example, the Reaper crest gives you slower attacks but longer reach, gives you a pogo like in Hollow Knight, and binding heals you as well as makes every successful needle attack produce white orbs that, when collected, refills your silk meter. Each crest also has different slots for your tools and silk skills. And this is where the system stumbles a little. There are 3 types of tools you can equip. Red for weapons, and blue and yellow for passive abilities. And man, I wish I could have more blue tools than the game allows. So many of the yellow tools kind of suck, and so many of the blue tools are just amazing. You can expand your slots by using memory lockets, but 2 or 3 of each type is the game's max. I also hate that I can only equip one silk skill at a time with most crests, especially when different silk arts have important utilities. One silk art gives Hornet a dash with iframes, and another gives her a parry with a counterattack. It sucks I can't equip both in most crests, and it sucks that these basic maneuvers even cost silk to use in the first place. But yeah, it's a cool system for what it is. When it comes to increasing stats, you can boost Hornet's attack with oil and her HP with mask shards. But honestly, this is another area where the game kinda falls flat. Upgrading your needle's damage never feels like much. The game says I'm stronger, but when early enemies still take 3 hits to take down after an upgrade, it's hard to believe it. HP upgrades aren't much better. Almost everything chunks you for 2 masks, so going from 5 to 6 doesn't really put the odds in your favor. You know how most Metroidvanias have you feeling like a complete badass by the end of the game? Hornet feels as flaccid and fragile at the start as she does at the end. One can argue that that's the point, and the true badassness comes from you getting good. And you know what? That's fair. But it's also fair that I can be let down by that truth. As far as the game's economy goes, the currency is called rosaries. They only fall out of certain enemies, and you need them for everything in this game. It's like that episode of The Simpsons where Mayor Quimby keeps making up taxes to get as much money as he can from the movie studio. You want a bench? Pay the bench tax. You want a fast travel point? Pay the fast travel point tax. Want a map? Map tax. Map pin tax. Map custom pin tax. There's a Citadel tube tax. Making a rosary tax. This game is capitalism manifest. There are even benches with one-time use fees. This game actually hates you if you're poor. And this game loves to keep you poor because corpse running is back, baby. Every time you die, you lose all your money and half your silk capacity. It's brutal. Corpse running clashes hard with the Metroidvania ethos of exploration. It crushes forward momentum and forces you to retrace your steps. Not because you want to, but because you have to. You can't just pivot to a new path. You've got to go back and reclaim your funds and fix your spool. And you'll need these funds because everything in Silksong costs money, and unless you're grinding rosaries, you're almost always strapped for cash. But here's the twist. As much as I hate corpse running, it didn't really bother me in Silksong. 1, there's an item that auto-retrieves your cocoon. 2, Hornet moves so fast that backtracking rarely felt like a chore. And 3, recovering your cocoon gives you back your money and a spool of silk, which can mean the difference between clutching a boss fight or eating dirt again. So yeah, corpse running has its drawbacks, but it also opens up a high-risk, high-reward strategy during boss encounters. I just leaned into it and made dying part of the plan. The side quests in Silksong are fantastic. They're a smart mix of Dark Souls-style quest lines and more modern systems with menu tracking. If you're not familiar with Dark Souls quest lines, here's the gist. You interact with NPCs at specific moments, which moves them to new areas, often requiring multiple conversations or revisits to trigger progress. It's a great system because it makes the world feel alive. NPCs move with or without you. But it's also kind of messy since there's no tracking and it's easy to miss content. Hollow Knight leaned heavily into this, and Silksong does too, but adds a contemporary layer to the mix with wish boards. Every major settlement has a wish board where bugs post their wishes. You can pick up a wish, complete the task, and get your reward. And the game actually tracks this in a menu. As much as I enjoy the mystery of Dark Souls style quests, I really appreciate the transparency here. Still, Silksong doesn't abandon the old framework completely, so don't be shocked if an NPC suddenly pops up in the wild with a surprise request. As far as quests go, they range from tracking down lost couriers and hunting rare beasts to restoring towns and gathering ingredients. Each wish type, Wayfarer, Hunt, Gather, Donate, and Learn, offers distinct gameplay hooks and rewards. Some wishes are more interesting than others. I'm not a big fan of collecting X amount of crap from defeated enemies, but all in all, I was always excited to see a new wish on a wish board whenever I revisited a settlement. And that's going to be it for progression. Silksong is a weird beast. It's not a Soulsvania despite being heavily influenced by the genre's philosophies, it's not a pure Metroid-like, and it sure as heck isn't Hollow Knight 2. It's its own thing, and you'll love to see it. Some of its systems shine, some stumble, and its economy is ruthless. But together, all these systems create a game that's overflowing with personality and ideas. You can call Silksong systems and mechanics whatever you want, but you just can't call them boring.
Exploration.
What can I even say? Hollow Knight's exploration is some of the best in the genre, and Silksong's is every bit as good, maybe even better. I've already mentioned the secrets within secrets, and how the game's refusal to guide you makes every discovery feel more impactful. But that only scratches the surface. The way Silksong's world interconnects, and how that interconnectivity doubles as both world building and environmental storytelling, is staggering. It communicates so much without saying a single word. Just moving through these areas feels rewarding, and the sheer creativity packed into every environment keeps the adventure fresh. Add in the nonlinear progression, and your journey and the discoveries you make along the way feel uniquely personal. Earlier I mentioned how the pacing feels a bit slow, especially when it comes to unlocking Hornet's first major traversal upgrade, her dash. But even so, Silksong's opening hours are leagues better than Hollow Knight's. Hollow Knight's intro often felt meandering, aimless, and honestly, a little boring, even if it fit the game's somber tone. Hornet's adventure is none of that. It kicks off with a bang, clear direction, fast-paced action, and plenty of interaction with enemies, NPCs, and the environment. Silksong's opening is sharper, more focused, and sets its tone right away. And while that initial structure makes for a more linear start, it doesn't take long before the game lets go of the reins and sets you loose in Farloom. And when I say non-linearity, I mean non-linearity. I'll save specifics for the spoiler section, but let's just say the game structures itself into acts. And the climax of Act 1 can be completely subverted if you explore Farloom deeply enough. This is nothing short of genius and exactly the kind of non-linearity I want in a Metroidvania. And it's not just a one-off trick either. Silksong sprinkles these subversive moments throughout the entire journey, letting you bend or break the intended path in ways that feel earned and unexpected. This is the best kind of reward a Metroidvania can give. No hand-holding, no hints, just pure discovery that meaningfully affects your understanding of the world and how it works. It's a bold design choice, and it pays off by creating moments that truly stick with you. Up until now, I've only talked about how just existing in Silksong's world feels rewarding, but I haven't even touched the tangible stuff you'll uncover along the way. And trust me, there's a ton. Mask shards, tools, crests, NPCs, shops, settlements, hidden bosses, hidden quests, and, of course, secrets on top of secrets. And did I mention this game is huge? It might be the largest Metroidvania to date in both surface area and runtime. I've seen people 100% this game in 39 hours. I hit 89% in 51, mostly because I'm trash at the bosses and spent way too much time farming just so I could keep summoning my flyboys. No regrets. When it comes to exploration, another hot topic has been the sparse placement of benches and checkpoints. Most complaints focus on the lack of benches outside of boss fights, which leads to those dreaded boss runbacks. Others just hate the scarcity of checkpoints in general. And as much as I'd like some kind of option to just get back into a boss fight quickly instead of doing a run back, I kinda get why benches are spread so thin throughout biomes and kinda agree with Team Cherry's vision. One of the most exciting parts of Silksong is seeing how its world folds back onto itself. And these sparse bench placements are a microcosm of that vision. Instead of littering the map with benches, the game uses shortcuts, hidden or plainly visible, that loop back to existing benches in clever ways, making the checkpoint more accessible as well as providing paths that bypass sections of the map for your convenience. It makes the world feel alive and intentional. Sparse benches also build tension. That gnawing uncertainty of not knowing when you'll find your next checkpoint makes the discovery of every new bench hit harder. The cathartic relief that washes over you when stumbling on a bench after a brutal stretch is unmatched. I get that some players hate that anxiety, but I love it. For me, the danger is part of the fun. So yeah, I'm siding with Team Cherry on this one. My advice, if the gaps between benches feel too long, just start poking at suspicious alcoves and walls. Odds are, there's a hidden shortcut or secret bench waiting for you. Now we've come to the part of the exploration section where I get angry, because Silksong did that shitty thing with its map again. Look, I'm fine with having to find Chakra. I'm even fine with paying for her map in every biome. I'll even tolerate resting at a bench to update it. But having to buy a quill before I can update my map and wasting a crest slot just to equip the compass so I can see myself? Nope. Hard pass. It sucked in Hollow Knight, but it's downright egregious in Silksong, where you only get 3 yellow tool slots. That means if you want to see yourself on a map, you're burning a third or half of your loadout. It was just a single notch in Hollow Knight. We used to be kings. Let's finish off with something positive, shall we? Fast travel. It's a waypoint system, and it involves this beaut. She's adorable, I love her, and she gets me where I need to go. 10 out of 10 fast travel system. Why won't you let me pet her, Team Cherry? That's it for this section. Exploration in Silksong is everything I wanted and more. The world is massive, interconnected in surprising and exciting ways, and packed with secrets. Its non-linearity is used to great effect, and just moving through Farloom feels rewarding on its own. Yeah, the map and compass system still makes me want to throw my controller out the window, but when a game nails the sense of discovery this hard, I can grit my teeth and deal with it.
Atmosphere. Narrative.
Silksong, like Hollow Knight before it, oozes atmosphere from every pore. The graphics are gorgeous, richly detailed environments, fluid animations, and a visual design that feels handcrafted with absurd care. Farloom's tone is distinct from Hollow Knight's oppressive melancholy. It's brighter, more ornate, but still tinged with that same haunting beauty that makes exploring these worlds so captivating. Every background, every silhouette, every eerie landmark, it's as much eye candy as it is exceptional world building. The music, of course, is phenomenal. Christopher Larkin returns and delivers another instant classic score. Sweeping strings, delicate piano, and those little melodic stingers that stick with you. Just like Hollow Knight, the soundtrack is both understated and powerful when it needs to be, and always elevates the moment without overwhelming it. And let's not forget that old Teen Cherry charm. Despite the dark tone, Silksong is full of quirky, humorous, memorable NPCs and playful character interactions. Hornet herself helps here too, because she actually talks. That's right, no more mute knight silently nodding at cryptic bugs and slabs, though that has its charm as well. Hornet engages with Farloom's residents, which adds warmth, clarity, and personality to a world that otherwise might feel distant. And of course, the cute character designs go hard. Go ahead and tell me who your new favorite NPC is in the comments below, and why it's Sherma. Speaking of clarity, Hollow Knight's story was famously cryptic, tucked away in vague dialogue and item descriptions, fueling endless speculation and entire YouTube channels dedicated to piecing together its lore. Well, bad news for those channels, because Silksong makes things much more straightforward. With a talking protagonist, ton of NPC interactions, and more direct storytelling, the narrative is far easier to follow. Hollow Knight lore channels might actually go out of business. Sorry guys, time to pivot to analyzing FNAF or Garden of Banban or whatever. That said, easier to follow doesn't mean simple. Silksong still weaves a layered story, full of themes about power, responsibility, mommy issues, and the always engaging and shockingly relevant theme of how absolute power corrupts absolutely, and clinging to said power past its prime leads to decay. Also, Sherma has a pretty cool arc that's essentially God only helps those who help themselves, and you'll like to see it. Like any great Metroidvania, your choices and your curiosity matter here, unfolding into multiple endings that reflect how deeply you've engaged with Farloom. Some endings are straightforward, others are hidden and obscure, and of course, there's a true ending. But unlike Hollow Knight, which has one of the best and logical paths to a true ending that I've experienced in a Metroidvania, Silksong's path isn't as impressive. It's not always clear why doing X, Y, and Z gets you the canon conclusion, but it's not that bad. It just could have been done a lot better by not feeling random. And on that note, it's spoiler time. I'm really just gonna get into specifics about the things I loved, and I feel viewing these spoilers could hurt your initial experience with the game. So, if you haven't played Silksong yet, go to this timestamp to fast travel to my final thoughts.
Spoilers.
Welcome to the spoilers section, where everything's brought up and the format don't matter. First off, let's talk about the Act 1 climax. You don't really know it at first, but opening the gate to the Citadel requires you to ring 5 bells throughout Farloom. And once you ring all those bells and try to open the gate, the last judge appears to incinerate your ass. It's a pretty tough fight and an excellent end for the first act. Anyway, this is where one of the most notorious runbacks in the game is, and after running it and getting burned alive a few times, I did the sensible thing and was like, I'm gonna go check out all these other biomes I found instead. I think one of them was called Bile Water. Ugh, what was I thinking? Turns out it was a good idea because through Bile Water, I found the mist. I also found the mist from Sinner's Road, but I turned around because I wasn't ready for a new biome yet. So I go through the mist, right? And at this time, I had no idea it was an endless maze. Matter of fact, the first time I decided to explore the mist, I failed to find the bench in Bile Water that's right outside it, so my initial visit was hell. I went through Sinner's Road, Bile Water, and then endlessly roamed through the mist until one of those banshee bitches killed me. I had never been so desperate for a bench in my life, and there was none to be found in the mist, man. I'll never forget that feeling of hopelessness. Anyway, I figured out the mist and how you gotta play the needle in and follow the butterflies, which is freaking cool, and that took me to that giant organ, which blew my mind. At this point, I didn't know what to expect from Silksong anymore. So I go into this organ with one mask and scramble to find a bench. Thankfully, there's a bench right as you enter the organ, but of course I missed it and stressed my way through the pipes. I eventually found the bench, and then I eventually found the Phantom. He was a cool boss. Definitely not one of the most intense ones, but it still took me a few tries to take him down. He's one of those dodge and punish bosses I like so much. Decent fight overall. So I take him down, move forward, and holy shit, a cutscene plays saying I'm in Act 2. I was flabbergasted. I had found a back door into the Citadel and skipped the judge fight entirely, rendering everything you do in the first act completely moot. I didn't have to ring any of the 5 bells or even fight the judge. This was big news. I couldn't believe it. This is the kind of reward you love to see in Metroidvanias. Hidden options discoverable through thorough exploration. It's absolutely incredible that such a path exists and is so fun to discover. Another time this happens is in the 3rd act when you're looking for the old hearts. I got absolutely stonewalled by the Coral Tower. I just could not get through all those waves of enemies. So I went exploring, and that's when I found Verdania and the Green Prince. Upon completing that aside, I was given a heart. It turns out I could use that heart in lieu of the heart found in the Coral Tower. I had never been so happy in my life. There's just something about discovering skips and unlocking alternative paths to progress that feels unmatched. Like I always say, exploration is the beating heart of Metroidvanias, and these 2 examples showcase that perfectly. And there's so many other things that blew my mind, like the entirety of Act 3. Getting the 3rd act was kinda weird, but man, this is where that nearly 7 years of development time went. The Void comes out of the abyss and starts strangling all of Farloom, with black tendrils and webbing covering the environments. All the environments. Team Cherry pulled an upside-down castle on us, but to a new extreme. They literally remade the entire world to be covered in void. That is way harder and much more impressive than just flipping every asset upside down and calling it a day. Like, holy crap, the attention to detail and the time it must have taken to pull this off. I freaking love when the world changes in a Metroidvania. I know I've said this before, but a Metroidvania's main character is its world. And watching it change, get recontextualized, is always exciting. And I've never seen an MV's world get so recontextualized, not on this massive of a scale. Even the enemies change. New enemies appear, old enemies can be randomly infected by the void and be given more HP and do more damage. It's just incredible. It makes things a little more difficult and a lot more tedious, but still, the work that went into this, phenomenal. I guess I'll end this section with my by chance encounters in the game. There's a few NPCs that will randomly appear and help you fight. Gourmand and Zaza are fun, the second Sentinel is pretty sweet, but Chakra might be my favorite. There's this supposedly really hard arena fight in the High Halls that people were saying took them hours to take down. It took me 2 tries. That's not a flex, because I openly admit I suck at this game's combat. I was able to take this fight down with relative ease because Chakra was there to help me. I guess because I completed her quest and found her master. But yeah, her help made that fight a complete cakewalk. I bring that up because everyone's experience with Silksong is going to be different, and that is such an impressive and amazing thing.
Final thoughts and score.
Silksong is a paradox of a game. It got me so frustrated that I quit it 3 times. Its combat drained me, but its platforming, exploration, and atmosphere absolutely floored me. Hornet's movement is a joy. Farloom is a world worth getting lost in, and the sense of discovery is second to none. But the spongy and overly difficult bosses, the over-reliance on obnoxious flying enemies, the tedious runbacks, and the busted economy drag things down. And that stupid map and compass system refuses to die. But when Silksong clicks, it reminds you exactly why this genre is so special. It's not Hollow Knight 2, it's its own beast, and that's something worth celebrating, despite its numerous flaws. I award Hollow Knight Silksong an 8 out of 10. I don't know if that'll be a controversial score or not. It's not a bad score by any means, but I guess I'll see how the Hollow Knight community responds. I'm sure it'll be fair and appropriate. The game's a bit too imbalanced in so many aspects, and it's downright disrespectful of players' time in others. Maybe it needed a little more time in the oven. But hey, who knows? The original Hollow Knight wasn't the greatest out the gate either, and got elevated with each new DLC and patch. Maybe the same could happen with Silksong 2. I think Silksong's a victim of its own hype. I'm not going to sit here and debate whether it lived up to the hype or not, because that's subjective, and I wasn't really that hyped for it myself. But what's clear is that its hype pulled in a lot of players who probably weren't the game's intended audience. So yeah, the complaints aren't going anywhere anytime soon. But that hype also means the community around Silksong is bigger than ever. And honestly, that's one of the best things about Hollow Knight and Silksong. I know I roast the fan base a lot, and trust me, they give it right back. But this is a community that makes the series special. The memes, the camaraderie, the impressive high-level no-hit boss content. You love to see it. And when the get good dorks aren't drowning out the discourse, the fan base is an incredible resource for anyone struggling. There are a lot of good apples out there, and all your videos, guides, and memes are appreciated. Silksong is available on PC, Switch 1 and 2, PlayStation 4 and 5, and Xbox Series S and X. I logged in 51 hours with 89% completion, and I played it exclusively on the Steam Deck. The only issue I had was that the game kept deactivating my trigger buttons, both on my deck and PS5 DualSense controller, every time I put the console to sleep, which forced me to restart the game to reactivate them. Other than that, I didn't have any other issues, and therefore give it a Steam Deck rating of verified.
Pair placement.
Silksong is a tricky one to place. Combat's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but there are aspects about it that drag things down. Too many spongy, flying enemies and punishing runbacks. And its ludicrous economy makes farming an unfortunate necessity. But the platforming is just so good, feeling fluid, expressive, and straight up fun. Progression has some questionable systems, but exploration is phenomenal, delivering those holy cow Metroidvania moments better than almost any other game. I'm in a bind here, pun intended. There's so much to love, and Silksong does so many things right, but it also does so many things wrong to where it's just too punishing and disrespectful to players' time. There were so many times when I put the game down and swore I wouldn't come back because I just wasn't having fun anymore. These bosses are just insane, and unless the game does some real overhauling, like maybe adding a baby mode for me, I don't think I'll ever play it again. Hollow Knight Silksong shows its way into the A tier. I honestly think Team Cherry misfired with this one. I know Silksong isn't Hollow Knight, and it's great that the two feel so different, but Hollow Knight wasn't just about brutal combat. It actually took over a year of DLCs before the game reached the Pantheon level difficulty people associate with it now. To have that level of challenge baked right into Silksong's base game feels excessive. Combat was only a slice of what made Hollow Knight special. Fans also fell in love with its atmosphere, exploration, rich lore, and all its fun, quirky characters. By leaning this hard into punishing combat, Team Cherry might be appeasing the loudest, most hardcore corner of its fan base, but it risks gatekeeping everyone else. I'm already hearing from players who feel alienated from their favorite series because of this brutal difficulty, and that sucks. That's why I see Team Cherry's early balance adjustments as an absolute win. I'd love to dive back into Farloom once things feel a little more even. There's no doubt that Silksong could easily hit the S tier with proper adjustments. I mean, an easy fix? Just give Hornet a diagonal up attack. That would help so freaking much. And I can hear it now. Get good, scrub.
No, I don't think I will.
You can tell me to get good all you want, but at the end of the day, it's just not that serious. I'm a grown man with other obligations. I can't spend hours bashing my head against bosses anymore. I got just good enough to finish the game so I could give it the proper review it deserves, and that's good enough for me. The good has been gotten, and I don't Needle prove anything else to you dorks.